Hey.
Oh, here in Amsterdam we have very interesting guests, and some of the guests have cultural complexity all over the place. They live in London, Zurich, Australia, they move around with kids, and they have a very interesting company which tries to solve a real-time problem, and that is about energy, Powerledger. And so Jemma Green, nice to talk to you here. You just arrived from Australia and you went to Zouk, the center of the European crypto scene, with 3 kids running around. How complex is that?
Well, it was quite a lot of planning to move the company and my whole family, which included a dog and a husband, as well as 3 children. But yeah, it's an amazing opportunity to be closer to the crypto market and the ecosystem, but also our clients. I was traveling so much, and to get anywhere from
Australia is a royal pain.
Away,
You're really a senior, because you started your company in 2017, right? I mean, 16
actually,
and 17 the ledger, the Powerledger token came out, and you're trying to solve a big hairy problem. You know, what about how did you're having this system to basically make it more possible to trade electricity on the blockchain? What exactly does the Powerledger do, or not exactly? Sort of.
Well, we have applications that start off with tracking electricity, so that you can track and say what type of electricity it is, because lots of claims are made about electricity. You know, is it renewable? Where is it from? And so at the base level, we track the type of electricity, the time it was generated, the place it was generated. Once you have that, then you can spin up different things. So you can create the ability to trade electricity between you and me, peer-to-peer. You could also tokenize that energy and make a renewable energy certificate, which is like an attribute of the renewable energy, and that can be traded.
Yeah. Something we really need. It's very complicated because it's everywhere. It's physical. You need to connect to it. It has a digital twin representation.
Exactly.
Now you've been busy since 2017. What's the state of Powerledger at the moment?
Well, we're just about to launch a carbon market in India, which is very exciting, tokenized carbon credits. We have a renewable energy certificate marketplace in the US. We have clients in Europe, utilities, who have tracking electricity. Like in France, we have a product we've launched with a retailer there called Equator, called Choose Your Mix. So people can specify, I want 10% solar from this solar farm, 15% wind from this wind farm, and what we measure is how much electricity that solar or wind farm generates, how much energy the consumer has consumed, and we match that and record that on the blockchain.
Yeah, so let me, I always try to understand, because it's complicated, right? Everything is complicated, but I mean, at the source where the electricity is produced, you basically measure it at a certain point, and then you put certificates on the blockchain saying, oh, so much electricity passed through this, and we've certified that this is really solar, this is really wind, because we have to be sure. How can you be sure? How do you do that system?
Well, you measure it from the meter, from where the energy is generated, and then you allocate it to one consumer. And that, I think, is important, because there's lots of claims being made about electricity, and there's a lot of greenwashing, and the ability to verify the provenance of electricity is quite important, particularly if a premium is being charged or it's being marketed in a particular way. So I think at the base layer, just getting integrity around the type of energy.
But how do you do it? I can imagine you have a meter, then you have a little computer which says, okay, I measure how much energy it is, but how do you then certify that this is really from that solar farm or this wind energy or that kind of stuff?
Well, it's a great question. You basically have a smart meter at the generation asset, so the solar farm or the wind farm, and you also have a smart meter at the consumer end. And one is consuming and one is generating, and you record all the information from the generation asset, which will be what is the type of energy, what time, the volume of energy. So it might be 100 kilowatt hours are being generated at 3 p.m. So you record that, and 100 kilowatt hours at 3 p.m. are being consumed, and that's measured at the smart meter at the consumer end.
Yeah, but you have to be sure that that meter, the smart meter, is really. You have to set every physical place has to be certified by a human or by an inspector or by something.
So there are kind of processes around that for billing purposes. So the electricity supplier pulls that information in from where they're buying electricity from and where they're selling it to, and they provide that to us, and we actually create the kind of matching system for that. so that the customers can go, I know I'm getting energy. I'm supporting my local solar project. I'm getting 70% of my energy from these projects that I've chosen. And they can like legally and validly say that they're getting energy from those places, then the energy is not being sold to someone else as well.
So you also have two different tokens. One basically where you do all the transactions, the electricity tracking and tracing, and on the other hand you have also a coin which is on the Ethereum blockchain, which is basically has a value. How do these two work together?
Yeah, so I mentioned that we have applications, but we also have our own blockchain, which is the Powerledger blockchain. And in May last year, we moved from an Ethereum-based blockchain to a Solana-based blockchain. So we took a clone of the Solana blockchain and we adapted it for the electricity use case. And we ran it as a private consortium chain until July this year when we made it public. And we made it public for a few reasons. One is that for many of our clients, it was actually important that we had open source public protocol. Some clients would only work with us if the blockchain was public. The second reason was that there are other applications besides ours that are looking to add a blockchain element to their product offering, and they may not want to have their own blockchain, and so they could use ours. And so this, I think, is an additional use case for the blockchain in addition to our own applications using our blockchain. Others, third-party applications can use our blockchain. Now, you asked me about the token. So we issued the Power token on the Ethereum network in 2017. And the Power token is used for transaction fees on the blockchain. So you need to pay tokens to write data to the blockchain. And when we made the Powerledger blockchain based on Solana public, there's a native token on that chain, which is the Power token on the Powerledger blockchain. And we're allowing bridging one-for-one from the Power token on the Ethereum network into the Power token on the Powerledger blockchain network, which is based on Solana. Sorry, that's a bit of a mouthful.
So see, it is complicated. It's complicated. I mean, there's transactions, there's value, there's payment, there's transactions.
Let me explain that quite simply. You need tokens to write data to the blockchain, and validators get paid to maintain the blockchain in tokens. So that's the token ecosystem, if you like. And it's possible to trade those tokens and convert them into money, like fiat currency, on exchanges via the Ethereum network.
Yeah, great. Okay, so this is your own project, and the complication of how it works, let's leave it at that. How far are you in your vision of being able to track? I mean, you're not at 1/10 of the production, 0.1% of the production of electricity, or are you in one country or somewhere where it's already a little bit meaningful?
No, we're not at 1/10, but maybe I'll give you a story which just gives you an indication of the progress that we've made. So we did a project last year in Uttar Pradesh, which is in India, which is the largest and most populous state there. They have 235 million people living in this one state. We did a peer-to-peer trading demonstration project, and the regulator there saw that this was a way that they could hit their renewable energy targets for which they were lagging behind without subsidies. And so they actually changed the regulation in May of this year to allow blockchain peer-to-peer trading across the whole state of Uttar Pradesh. And there are half a dozen other states in India which are similarly contemplating this kind of thing. So I think this gives you a bit of a sense of the scale potential that's been contemplated in these larger markets, for which there's more of an appetite to leapfrog and experiment and try new things and not sort of be hamstrung by more incumbent thinking or legacy ideas.
Okay. You are now in this business for 8 years, right, on this blockchain, and before you did all kinds of other companies, and you also do pension funds, being more green. How happy are you, how satisfied are you about the progress of doing useful things with the blockchain technology in any shape, in any market, because you see them all around you?
Well, most of the things that we do each day, banking, social media, is all on like Web 2 solutions. So it's not like huge, but there's hundreds of billions of dollars worth of value that's being created in the ecosystem. But it's early. It's in the early. I would call it like the early 2000s. Maybe when when the internet was invented, there are a lot of things that were experimented with to understand like what were the big players today. Or like another analogy is like when desktop computers were created, firstly, no one really knew what to do with them.
But that phase where
faster typewriter, right?
Yeah. But I mean, in general, it takes a long time, and we're at the beginning, and we need a lot more time to get it done.
I think you can see. I think one of the limitations from like the Ethereum ecosystem was the scale question, and what has been proposed with layer 2 and sharding doesn't allow for the scale. So I think what's exciting about like being at this particular conference with Solana is that the scale potential is so significant. And when you actually know that you can do that, that unlocks a lot more ideas, and you can see the applications that are being created in the ecosystem, like Hive Mapper and like internet and Wi-Fi sharing, and Helios for like music and app sharing. These are really novel ideas where apps and tokens are being used alongside Web 2 actually to exchange assets and payment systems. So I think you're going to see a lot more users enter the space because you've got this foundational piece of technology which can allow a lot more.
Yeah. Solana, you're at the conference. I mean, they went through a lot. They went up and down, and now they're recovering slowly. What is your feeling of the ecosystem?
Well, that's quite interesting because I've been living in Zug for about 2.5 months now, and when you talk to people there, they're very wedded to like Ethereum. A lot of their tooling, their developers, ecosystem, infrastructure is set up around it. So there's actually quite a reluctance to move. That's one thing. So there's a kind of entropy, I'd say, in a lot of technology.
So they like you because you're progressive. You did that. So you're somebody who tried it and who went from one blockchain to the other.
Well, they think that's kind of curious, but they also think they're like, oh, Solana. They say there's a lot of comments around Solana being unstable. That was the thing we were hearing a lot of.
Sure.
And I realized that they actually hadn't delved very deeply into Solana to understand how stable it is. And I think the thing that struck me most about being at the conference today is how stable and decentralized the network actually is, contrary to perhaps what the rhetoric might be. So you can see that reflected in the kind of token price to a certain extent. There's a lack of real awareness outside of the deep Solana developer community around actually what's possible and what's happening.
Yeah. What about legislation? You're now in Europe. We have MiCA coming up. We have legislation where everything is going to be certified and there's going to be some rules. How do you look at that as being one of the first big territories which is going to implement legislation?
Well, I think one of the great things about Switzerland, where Powerledger is based, is that there's a lot of regulatory clarity. The regulators were very proactive about defining what different activities would be regulated, how they would be regulated. It's very easy to get like a clear view from the regulator, whereas I think in other places it's much more opaque. So I think clarity is probably the most important thing, because then people know how to operate within that framework without regulatory uncertainty.
Yeah. And what do you think of the MiCA legislation?
Well, I think it's going to be important, but you can see that if certain things are kind of like problematic for the industry, it might cause fragmentation where organizations do certain activities outside of certain regulatory frameworks. So I think there need to be something that is thought about that doesn't ultimately lead to overall departure because certain things are not able to be done in an efficient way.
Okay. The first 7 years were interesting. What's going to happen in the next 7 years?
Well, I think there was a lot of experimentation and understanding like what are the products for which there's the most like market fit and appetite for scale. And I think the next phase is really focused on like user adoption, megawatts, and just focusing our attention in the markets where there's the biggest opportunity for scale.
Okay. Good luck to regulating, or to basically organizing the first 1%, and from 1 to 2 to 5.
Thank you.
Because it's useful. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you so much.